To discuss. I'm pleased to welcome to the program Eric Lisan. He's a former U.S. federal prosecutor. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Mr. Lisan, first of all, do we know what it is that the New York Attorney General is actually investigating here?
We don't know exactly, but we have a pretty good idea that since they're combining their resources and investigation with that of the Manhattan District Attorney led by Cyrus Vance, that it probably, in all likelihood, relates to real estate business undertaken by Donald Trump and the Trump Organization, which are headquartered in Manhattan and that has many properties in Manhattan. New York has a particular criminal statute which is somewhat unique, giving its state attorney general, which is now Letitia James, some broad powers to investigate fraud in real estate and other things. But here, what would seem to be relevant is real estate. That's called the Martin Act. So any types of representations made to buyers or other vested stakeholders in these real estate transactions, if they gave rise to fraud investigations, and this is similar to what other prosecutorial authorities are investigating, would come under the purview of the state attorney general. So it could very well be that, and since the headquarters and many of the properties involved are in Manhattan themselves, it would make sense to combine these two prosecutorial authorities for the purposes of this investigation.
As I understand it, Trump no longer enjoys protection from prosecution, given that he is no longer the president. Should Trump be worried then about this criminal investigation?
Yes, he has to be worried, and indications are that he's been thinking about this for a fairly long time, and that might be what was the primary motivation behind him changing his residence from New York to Florida, and the fact that he's rarely left Florida since he left the White House, much to the surprise of many people who thought he would be much more active in various events and campaigning. He really doesn't seem to have left Florida. So it's probably somewhat or constantly on his mind and dictating his overall strategy. The fact that it was announced publicly like this is significant just from a perception point of view, because it does indicate that the Attorney General is making a statement to anybody involved in the investigation, including Donald Trump, who's obviously the head of the Trump Organization, or was for many, many years, and functionally keeps that title, which is that, yes, we are launching a criminal investigation into you, and you should be aware of it. We think there's a high probability that this will result in some type of criminal charges. That type of a statement from a prosecutorial authority is somewhat rare. They don't usually do that. Sometimes there's even ethical guidelines against that, because if you don't know for certain that it's going to result in a formal charge, such as an indictment, most people will hold off on doing that. But here, the prosecutor hasn't done that, which may be a sign that they are virtually certain that at some point in the not-too-distant future, there will be charges facing the president here. And he cannot have missed that signal.
Yeah, and you say the not-too-distant future. Do you have any sense of what the possible timeline could look like?
Well, we don't. We really don't know. There's an expression, waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's what this was designed to do, to sort of put everybody on notice that the other shoe is going to drop. When it's going to be is with the very limited knowledge that we have, is impossible to predict. It could be next week, it could be next month, it could be months down the line. And indeed, when we look at the history of investigations into Donald Trump, he has been successful in one thing, which is delaying them and putting them off. We have seen federal investigations disappear without explanation. So we don't know for sure that this will result in something. We just have this somewhat bold statement by the New York State Attorney General with no other real hard information or facts to guide us. But in the light of that statement, we can't be surprised if something happens in a matter of weeks. That would be very short, but it would make sense given this statement. On the other hand, given all the other problems that arise in an investigation of this nature, which is really unprecedented and is being done at a state, not a federal level, it wouldn't be surprising if it took longer than that either.
All right, we will see what happens. Eric Lisan talking to us there from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis.